Yeah, my chest is starting to shake. It's so true what you're saying. It's when my son was born, I just kept saying to myself, "It's the same thing. It's the same thing."
Do you mind publicly sharing about your son's birth and what happened? Because when you told me the story, I was
Mhm.
astounded, and I didn't know if you were comfortable sharing that or not.
Yeah, I can share it.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it was so fresh when I told you he was only, I think, a month and a half old. So
Yeah,
it
he
was
was
really,
6 weeks old when you
yeah,
told me the story. Now,
yeah.
how old is he right now?
He's 10 and a half months now.
10 and a half
Yeah.
months. But please, this is
Hmm.
an amazing story.
Hmm. Yeah, we had my partner Margot. She's a very she would call herself an Earth Mama.
Okay.
She really values holistic treatments and doing things on your own as much as you can.
Right.
We had a home birth planned. We had the tub. We had the doula. This beautiful midwife who's been doing this for 40 years in LA. She's a legend. And we had everything. We had it all planned. We even had the mindset. Okay, well, if we have to go to the hospital, so be it. Well, her water broke before she went into labor, which is actually quite rare. It only happens about 10% of the time. From that point on, you have about 48 hours before the chance of infection goes through the roof. And then you have to go to a hospital.
Right.
So we did everything we could to try to get this baby pushed out.
Right.
We went on an 8-mile walk one night over the hills of our neighborhood. We were,
Jumping up and down.
get out of
Get
there.
out. Come out.
Nothing. She had a few contractions. After 48 hours, the midwife came to our house. Margot opens the door. She's got this big smile on her face, and my midwife goes, "You're not in labor." And she's like, "But I had some contractions." She's like, "No,
No.
sweetie, you would not be answering the door with a smile on your face. Trust me, you're not in labor. Time to pack your bags. Let's go to the hospital." Um, the first twist was we had a backup hospital planned. The midwife said, "I don't want you to go to that hospital. If you walk in there, they're going to give you a C-section as soon as you walk through the door. There's another hospital. They have a team of midwives. I really think you should go there." So we change direction once. We go to the hospital. We get checked in. They check her dilation. She's not practically not dilated at all. So they said, "All right, we can't. There's a lot of things we can't do at this point, but we can kind of start warming you up." So the first intervention comes. It is a um, something to speed the process up,
Right.
right? So that goes on, and then it's working. Contractions are happening. However, we're hooked up to all these monitors, which is another thing that she didn't want, and we're watching the baby's heart rate, and it's dipping down and then going back up every time she has a contraction. It's dipping down and going back up, and this is one of those things where call the nurse. "Hey, nurse, this is happening." I'm freaking out. The nurse is like, "It's normal." Walks out of the room. It's like, oh, okay, great. That doesn't feel real good. Um, so it keeps happening all night. Neither one of us sleep. The morning comes around and Margot says, "Hey, can we check again?" So they check. You're only 1.5 centimeters. Now it takes 10 for those of you who don't know.
Yeah,
It
to
takes
give
10.
birth, and
Mhm.
the water's already broken,
Right.
but it ain't happening.
Right.
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 Okay.
And they say, "Okay, this is really, however, this is really stressful for the baby. Obviously, yes, the heart rate is dropping. We need to do something." So they have to inject more artificial amniotic fluid into the sac to try to relieve some of the pressure from the baby, some of the stress. Thankfully, that worked. So we get through that. And then when they checked her again and she was only 1.5 centimeters, she was like, "I can't do this. This has been 48 hours. No, it's been now 70 something hours.
Right.
I'm only 1.5 centimeters after so much work." She completely collapses. "This is it. I'm done." And I had to have like a coach in the locker room halftime moment with her where it was one of those moments where just like with my subjects, I'm dropping in, okay, how am I feeling right now? Where is she at? Okay, let's find that space in the middle.
Right.
And I got down on my knees and I looked up at her on the bed and I said, "Whatever it is that you need to do, you do it. You have gone so far beyond what anyone would expect at this point. You've endured so much. If you want to get a C-section, if you want to get an epidural, because those things were off the table for
Right.
her. Anything you need to do, you deserve it all. And then we had a really good cry, and she's like, okay, I'm going to get a C-section. And we call the midwife, and she says, don't get a C-section. Don't do it. Get an epidural first. So she got the epidural, and then she's feeling better. It's like all of that energy, that thickness that was in the room just
Right.
left. Whew, we're good. Okay. I can pull out this book. So silly, the things that we think we're going to need during a birth. I brought this roomy book of poems that I thought we would just sit there and read.
Read
And
poems and the baby would
Yeah.
slide out. All right.
She's like hanging on me and moaning, and I'm like moaning too. And, but so I'm like, okay, I can finally read this roomy poem. I pull out, I'm reading a poem. And just as I finish, I close the book. And this photo of me and my grandmother slides out of the book. I don't even remember putting it in there. Slides out of the book. And also, my grandmother passed away 3 years ago.
Okay.
So, here she is. She shows up. Here we are. Like, grandma's in the room. And, that intuition that comes through is 100% from her genes. She's the kind of woman who she would stare you in the eyes when she first met you. And you just knew right away. Not only does she love you, but she also knows everything about you somehow too.
Right.
So having her presence in the room was just such a strength for us, to keep going. So then the contractions are picking up where we progress with Pitocin, which is,
Right. Move things along.
Yet sometimes the heartbeat is still going, it's still dropping. And I'm sweating bullets now. Like neither one of us have slept in 2 days.
Right.
This baby is on the edge. And finally, the shift change comes. They check her again. She's 9.5 now. Whoa, just like that. All right, let's start pushing. Let's do this. After 20 minutes, he comes out. And I'm front row for the whole thing. I've got 4 cameras there, 2 film cameras, a digital camera, and my iPhone, recording every moment.
Like a true photographer.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but at some point I'm putting them down, and I'm like the sideline. I'm on the coach position again, and I've got my hands on my thighs, and I'm staring down the barrel of the birth canal, and I'm watching his head come out. And then it hits me. I've never seen a childbirth before, but something about this looks different. And I knew he had some meconium, which is an issue, and they had a team of ICU people there because we knew he was small.
Right.
He kind of stopped growing. Margot had got COVID 30 weeks in, and he kind of stopped growing at that point.
Interesting. That's fascinating.
Yeah. They anticipated he was going to be about 5 pounds. So they had the ICU team there, and everybody's watching this, and I see his head come out and the cord's around his neck. Oh my God. So the midwife whips the cord around, gets it off of his neck. But then I'm like, but still something doesn't look right. And they pull him out the last bit. And as they pulled him out, she was holding him, and his body was just a bag of bones.
Just limp.
Yeah, he's the color of this gray soundproofing here. Just dark gray. And it's hitting me. It's hitting me now, but it was hitting me in the moment of like, oh, this is not normal.
Right.
His eyes are closed. No breath.
No movement.
No movement. Margot is thrilled that she just pushed this baby through the canal. She's also high as a kite on endorphins and hormones and epidural. And they show her that they do the customary, here's your baby, and then I hear the ICU doctor or the NICU doctor next to me say, cut the cord immediately. They cut the cord and they take him over to the table and they start working on him. And I go over and I'm staring. I'm just 8 inches from his face through this little glass bassinet, and I'm staring at him and going, come on, buddy, come on. You can do this. Land in your body. Land in your body. And then at some point, I can only imagine what crazy things fathers do when their kid is in the situation. So at some point, the NICU nurse looks at me and she's like, hey, you got to go. So I stepped back and I go over to Margot And I put my head on her lap, and she's saying to me, "Are you okay? Everything is going to be fine. Don't worry. This is totally normal. This is totally normal." And she's rubbing my head. And in my head, I'm like, do I tell her? Do I reveal to
The
her?
baby is limp and gray.
Yeah. Or do I just see what happens?
Mm.
And in that moment, I felt God in the room very strongly. And he's basically telling me he, God,
she, it,
yes,
the divine mind,
the
spirit.
divine mind
Yeah.
is telling me, are you going to face this and not run away? Are you going to accept that this might be the only time you have with your son? And it's tense, and my body is building, and my shoulders are coming up, and I want to throw up. And then I just say, okay, if that's all I get, that's all I get. And my body released, and then I hear the nurse say, he's starting to cry.
Oh my gosh.
He's starting to cry. And then you can start to hear the choking, and then there's his voice.
Wow.
Yeah.
I've heard the story before, but it's anyone that hasn't experienced the miracle of birth, and it is a miracle, and that moment when the baby comes out, but what you went through, and it's so fascinating that you felt that spirit, for lack of a better label, in the room, and at that moment you relaxed and the baby, you kind of let go, and the baby arrived.
Yes.
That's fascinating.
Yeah, it's almost, it's like that. I love the motion you made with your hands there. It's like the release of my body went into his.
Yeah.
At some point they said, get the crash cart. Get the crash. He was right there. He's a candle flickering in the wind.
Wow.
Right there. And it's that, we talked about this during the photo shoot. It's that essence. It's tangible.
Right.
It's viscous, and you can feel it in the air. It's like a clicking and a snapping and a sparkly, and there's, I can taste it almost right now as we talk about it.
Absolutely.
And that's there with death and birth.
Yes.
And in this case, he was right on the line.
Oh,
I was really feeling that. There's this thing called the APGAR score, and it's a rating of a baby's health. It goes from 0 to 10. 0 is there's no heartbeat, there's no breath, there's nothing. 10 is perfect health. At 1 minute out of the womb, he was a 1.
Oh my gosh.
At 5 minutes out, he was a 9.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Incredible.
And he's been an 11 since then.
And he's doing well. And I've seen pictures of him. He's beautiful.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's great. Well, I usually wrap up these podcasts by going, my book is about glimpses and seeing little glimpses of God. I think you just kind of defined the ultimate glimpse at the birth of your son. You experienced that. I'm in awe. I'm almost speechless, Tom. I think we'll wrap it up here, because I don't know how you top that story. God bless you. Thank you for coming on this podcast. I appreciate it. And for those of you who are listening as you go about your day, I encourage you to take the time, look around, and catch a glimpse.
Thanks, Matt.
Thank you. Thank you so much for being a part of the Glimpses YouTube family. I hope you like, subscribe, and enjoy all of the clips and episodes coming your way. As you go about your day, I encourage you all to take a moment, look around, and catch a glimpse.